Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for those of you out west. And welcome to the coffee break. My name is Christophe Conta. Today, we will be covering the inventory counting and inventory posting in SAP Business One. So once again, if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me. Okay, so this is a screenshot that was taken from the official documentation of SAP. It explains that we have different ways of organizing the inventory counting. We could use the single counter here, which is the most simple way of proceeding to the inventory. That means we have only one person doing the inventory counting. We have just one file to import, and so that's what we have is what we will be putting in the system. We can have also multiple counters. So let's say we have two or more people. Those people could be counting using the individual counting option. What it means is they will be counting the same items, and let's say these are valuable items. So we will have two different versions because we have two counters, and we will compare those versions and do some verifications or just import the one that we think is the best. We could also have those two people working in team counting. What it means is that they will split the job, they will count their own part of the stock, and after that we will add together those quantities. So that is the difference. My suggestion is that we will start with the most simple one, which is a single counter. We will go through the procedure, and after that we can look at the individual counting. After that, we can look at the multiple counters, whether they are individual or team. So that is the procedure, and this procedure comes from the official documentation of SAP. It's quite easy actually. First, we have to make sure that there is no pending transaction in the system. So no open inventory counting document. All the receivings, receptions, deliveries have been made. Then we create an inventory counting document. So what is an inventory counting document? It's simply a list of items that we have to go count in the warehouse. So nothing is being recorded in the system at this moment. It's just a list, and it can include the bin also, the counting type, individual or in team, and the name of the counters. Then we freeze the items so that we make sure that no one will do any transfer or any deliveries. We add the inventory counting document, and then we print the inventory counting document. Sorry, there is someone that just joined us. May I ask you to mute yourself? Okay, thank you. All right. So we print the document, the inventory counting document. What this document will show is like we will give it to the counters, and it will tell them exactly what they have to go, like which items they have to go and see in the warehouse and which items they have to count. Then we do the physical on-site counting. We come back with that information, we update the information in the system. It could be manually or imported from Excel. We make some verification, analyze the variances, and then we post the information in SAP. So let's go to SAP now, see how this will be done. Under the inventory transaction, inventory counting transaction. So the first document we have to enter is the inventory counting. First step of the procedure is that we have to make sure that we have no open document for the inventory counting. If I do a search and I'm looking for the open document, I will see that I have two documents. So if I wanted to count this item and this one, I would have to actually close it and recreate it, or I could even use it. But the reason why I'm going to keep them is because these are just for the item A1 and A2, and I would like to show you at the end of the presentation, I would like to give you an example with those two items, how it will work using the multiple counter. So this one is a multiple counter with individual counter, and this one is a multiple counter with team counter. So let's create a new document, very simple document with simple counter. What we have to do is we have to make sure that we enter the right date. If the physical inventory was done yesterday, then we would enter yesterday's date. And I will enter the user that have proceeded to the physical inventory. So now it is me, but it could be, so I could select any user in SAP, or if it was done by someone that is not in SAP, I could use also the employee master data window. Okay, so it can be any employee that is not listed in SAP. Now, how we can list the items. We will click on this button, Add Items, and select items. So we could use a filter on the item group, on the item properties. If we had bins, we could also filter by bins. I have not set up the bins on my system, but it's the same logic as the item group or the properties. So for this example, I will start from A3 because I don't want to use A1 and A2. They are already in an open inventory counting document. So let's use from A3 to C6. And I would like to do the inventory counting for warehouse 1 and warehouse 2. And I'm going to hit OK. All right, so that is the items that I want to count. So the next step will be to freeze the items. I'm simply going to double click on the freeze, and now no one will be able to sell them or to adjust them or even to transfer them in the warehouse. Then I will just add it. Perfect. So now nothing has been posted in terms of transaction. There was no adjustment in the system. There was no journal entry. This is just a picture of what we need to count. And we will print it. So we could show the in-warehouse quantity on count date, or we could hide them depending on if we want to provide the information to the counter. Maybe we want to hide the information so that he really has to count it. And it's going to list the item that we want, the warehouse code. See, we have the item that we have chosen for warehouse 1, and then they start again for warehouse 2. And the counter can enter the quantity here. Then he will come back. He will come back to us, and we can manually enter the quantity in SAP if we have not many items. See, as soon as I enter the new quantity, the column counted will be checked. Okay, so if I want to zero down an item, I will just force the counted. Otherwise, I can just enter the information and the column will be checked automatically. So if we have a few hundreds or a few thousand items, we might want to use the import from Excel option, which is right there. So let's use the import from Excel. That is a great feature that I'm sure every one of you know. All I need to have is a file an Excel file that has exactly the same structure as what I'm going to have here. So that means item code, warehouse code, and counted quantity. Now I have the item code, warehouse code, and counted quantity. If I want to force a zero value, then I will have to enter the line of the item and force the zero value. I will save this file as a tab delimited CSV text. Sorry, not a CSV, a text tab delimited. And I will click on the three dots here to import it. Okay, and I could also check the import file for errors. There is no error, perfect. So by default, it automatically imported all the items that I had for both warehouses. I have two items here that were not imported, which is A6 for warehouse 1 and for warehouse 2 here. The reason why it was not imported is because it was not in my file, and I did not add it in my file because this one is a bit special. It is managed by serial and batch number. It's actually managed by serial number. So I could not mix it up with the items that are not managed by serial or by batch. So what I can do is I have another file specifically for this item, and the structure of the file is very similar, except that I have one line per serial number. So for the same item, the same warehouse, I have the quantity here and the serial number. I will proceed to the import exactly the same way, and I'm going to make sure that I have the same structure here with the serial number in the first column. Okay, I will click on import, and now all my lines are checked counted. So you see A6 I had before 72, now I have 2, I have counted 2. And if I do a right click, serial and batch selection, the batch, sorry, not the batch, the serial number were imported here on the right part of the window. Okay, so I know that I'm able to manage the bin, the batches, and serial. I can also manage the unit of measure. Let's say that I have an item that is called test. This item comes by package or by pack of 6. In warehouse 1, I have 50 of them, 50 packs. In warehouse 2, I have 50 packs of 6. I will import that item using the import from Excel. So I'm going to use the UOM code column now. And in line 23 and 24, I'm adding the new item. Okay, so what does it say here? I have none in stock now, but I have counted 50 of them, except that for warehouse 1, it's 50 pack. For warehouse 2 here, if I do a drill down on it, I will see that it's a 6-pack, 50 of a 6-pack, which means 300 altogether. Okay. So I have all of my items. I will be ready to update the information now. So once again, now I have not posted anything in SAP. I'm just preparing the file to be imported with the right quantities, the right batch, and the right serial number. Okay, so I can do a quick verification. I have a few more. I have actually 1,037 extra. And here I have some lines that are in red. Why are they in red? You see the variance here per line in number, and you see the variance in percentage. The lines that are highlighted in red are the one for which, if I go to the next slide, for which I have set up to be highlighted if the variance is greater than a certain percentage. For instance, if I'm greater than 5%, I would like my lines to be highlighted. So you can find this information in the document settings, which is here in the module administration, system initialization, and document settings. This is where you could change it if you had to. So now that I'm ready and I'm happy with the quantities I have, I can copy that information to an inventory posting document. So what it is, it's the next step. Actually, we are at the very last step, which is to create an inventory posting document. So that option here, copy to inventory posting, will open the inventory posting document. So basically, I have pretty much the same information here, except that I might have a few missing lines. That is because they are exactly the same, they have the same number in the counted column than in the in warehouse quantity. So let's say all of these lines from 17 to 22, they are exactly the same quantities. We don't need to post anything against them. Okay, so we can verify the posting date and make sure that the transactions, the pluses and minuses, will be posted against the right cost. So if we have any items that will be taken off the inventory, they will be taken off regarding their evaluation methods. Like for instance, I am in moving average. This item here, A3, is managed by moving average. So the item cost that is here will be the one that will be used. I don't have any control over this if the inventory goes down. But if it goes up, then I will have to specify an item cost. In my situation, it's mandatory because it is a setting of my SAP. So that means that if I'm trying to add the document now, it will block me because I need to enter an item price for each line, which I'm doing now. And that will allow me to see what is the total of the difference between what I have in SAP now and what I will have after I'm posting the document. So I will have 21,000 more in inventory. And also what I should be doing, what I should be taking care of is the inventory offset here. That is important to have a profit and loss inventory. I do not want to have an inventory account here. So we are doing our verifications. We are happy with the value and with the quantity. We are ready to add the information. And now, because there will be some journal entry transactions involved, SAP is warning me that I won't be able to change the document after it has been added. So I will say yes. And SAP is asking me if I want to close all the rows in the inventory counting documents where the variance is 0. I will say yes. Okay. And from now on, the information that I see here in the counted quantity is posted in SAP. Here I have the 1100 for warehouse 1. Okay, do you guys have any questions so far?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
On the previous screen, the counting screen,
Right?
are you able to bring in dollars at that screen instead of just waiting for the posting screen, like so that you kind of get a feel for the variance, not just in quantity, but
Not
in
that I know.
dollars?
Not that I know here. We're just talking about quantities. Yeah, so we have to go to the next screen
Okay.
and make sure that we are against the right price list, because we could be against um, we we could be against a selling price list or a purchasing price list which we don't want to. So we want to be as closest to the item cost as possible.
Right. Okay. So you have to go to the posting screen.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we've done an easy transaction with a single counter. We can have also multiple counters. And I will go back to the two examples that I had here. So let's say that we have two people that will be proceeding to the inventory counting. We have those two people. For some reason, we want them to work not as a team, but we want to make sure that we have a really good picture of the inventory. We have the exact information. So they will both be counting exactly the same boxes, the same items in the same aisle. So the procedure is exactly the same, but in that situation, we have here two columns, one for the counter number one for the counter number two. And we will enter the information for each of them. Okay, so for counter number one, we have 972 and 970 and 972 for the counter number two. For the same reason, the line is getting red. The reason is now for the as soon as we have a variance greater than 0%, we will have the line highlighted. So what is the difference between the counters variance and the counters difference? Let's go back to SAP. The counters difference is the counters between the two people, the two counters here. So let's say in that situation, we have just a difference of one. So we know that one of them is wrong. Ideally, we would go and check, make sure that we're on the same page. What is the max variance? The max variance is the difference between what we have in the system now, so that is 974, and what we have from the counter that is farthest from this. Okay, so if I had 950 for this one, now the difference will be 24. Okay, I'm very far from the 974. So let's go back to a more realistic quantity. Let's say that we have a 50 for the line number two and a 50 here. That is perfect. That is really what we were expecting. So the line stays dark, and we know that this one won't have to be posted. So let's do an update, and let's do a copy to inventory posting now. See, we have more options. We could copy the lines that has no counters difference. In that situation, I know that the line number one won't be copied, and I know that the line number two won't be copied also, but because they don't have to, they have exactly the same information than what is in the system. So let's say that both agree. We have 972, sorry, let's go back to 972 and update. This first option will allow us to post a modification of -2. Okay. If for some reason we don't agree, we can decide that we're going to post the information from the counter number 1 or from the counter number 2. And then we can post the document. Same thing, we're going to make sure that we have the right item cost, and we're going to make sure that we have the right inventory offsetting account. Okay, so that method is used when we want to really make sure that we have the right information and we have two people counting the same stock. Now, if we have people, I'm going to switch the document. If we have people counting in team, so we have still the same two people, but this time they will be working together and each of them will be counting their own stock. We have an extra tab here, team counting, that we did not have before. And in that tab, we will enter the quantities that each of the counter has. So let's say we're expecting a 975 and a 50. So let's say we have 500 here and 460, and let's say we have 25 and 25. So here, those two quantities will be added, and we're going to get very close. We're going to get, we have a variance of 5, a quantity of 5, which is 0.5%. So if we agree that those two people have really counted this information, we can update and we can just copy to the inventory posting. So see now, we don't have the option of choosing like whether it's going to be counter 1 or counter 2. It will just import like the sum of what was counted, the total of it. And we can add the document against the right item cost once again. So basically, these are the three methods that we can use. Actually, for those methods also we can use the import from Excel as long as we enter the counter type and the counter ID. It works quite well actually, this tool. Do you have any questions?
Hi, I have a question. Actually,
Sure.
it's just to confirm, when you're the inventory posting will unfreeze all the items, right? Or you don't have to, you have to do it manually?
It will unfreeze them. Yes, exactly. Inventory posting, let's just make sure that now we can do a quick transaction. I'm pretty sure. Let's do an invoice for A3. Yeah, we're good. We're good. And also, I forgot to tell you something. What we've done is, so first, it is really recommended to start with an inventory counting and then copy it to an inventory posting, because technically we could do an inventory posting right away, but it gives us more chances to control and do some verification to do an inventory counting first. But what we could do 2, 3, 4, 10 inventory counting document, and then instead of each of them copying them to the inventory posting, we would open an inventory posting and do a copy from inventory counting. And there we would select all the ones that we want to post. as long as we select the same counting type. So we can import the multiple counters together, and we can import the individual counters together. But that's the only thing we have to verify. So it's like from a sales order, if we do a copy to delivery, or if we do a delivery copy from sales order, it's exactly the same logic. Do you have any other question?
You could, in the inventory count, you can copy paste into Excel, that sheet, like before you post.
So
Like if you have a long, you
from
could copy paste
there, yeah, very good. So from there, you could do an export to MS Excel.
Yeah. Okay.
What I always do here, I do yes, but to a separate column to the currency.
Okay.
And it will help you to see any differences. You could keep track of this. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You could also export. For some reason, it's not exporting. Inventory counting. Okay, so for some reason it does not work on my station, but yes, you can do that.
Okay, and you also had I saw earlier you had check mark, something about check errors on imports,
Yes.
something like that. What are some typical things that can happen or that we should watch out for?
So
On
what
error?
could happen, you could have some items that are not active. Here, if the item is inactive, it won't allow you to perform the inventory counting.
Mm-hmm.
You could have an error in the item code, or sometimes what we see often is when a warehouse code starts with 0, Excel deletes the 0, so we would have just the number 1, which we don't want here. So having a 1 instead of 01 could be an error. What else? If we have the wrong unit of measure, if we have the wrong batch, I guess it could happen. So yeah, it's always good to check that, because if for some reason you have 100 reject, but all the rest is good, it will be imported, but not the reject. So, and then you're gonna have to delete line by line if you want to go back to the previous step, or cancel and redo the transaction. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anything for non-inventory items? Like they don't go to the balance sheet as inventory items, but say they're expense items. But are you able to count those?
No, not really. No,
Like it?
no.
Okay.
I have one last question.
Sure.
You mentioned at the beginning that the inventory, the count date can be in the past, like yesterday's date. Can you prepare your inventory counting and put a date for like doing it in advance, like for tomorrow, let's say?
Not sure about this. No, it does not let me. It cannot be a date in the future. And I'm not sure if this is hard coded or if this is something in my settings, but I would guess that it is hard coded. So okay, so I guess the reason that you're asking this is because it could take more than 1 day, so you want to make sure that the day after it has the correct date?
Yeah, that's right, for example.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not too sure about this. General. I would have to verify. I'm not sure if I'm allowing the, the allow future posting date. Okay, there it is. Allow future posting date. Let's do a quick verification. Okay. No, still, it does not let me. So I believe it's something that we cannot do, but if you really want, I could verify. Just let me your name and I could get back to you.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So if there is no other question, I would like to thank you. I would like to remind you what is our phone number, where you can reach us. That is our email also. I really hope you enjoyed the session. Don't hesitate to communicate with us, to ask us any questions. We're here to help. And Tracy will be back on Monday. She'll be able to send you the record session if you ask her. So I would like to thank you and have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you.